Okay, here it is, the world's most bullish podcast. Once again, the four Bs, but this time, this is the misinformation part 3 because it's Dr. Evil 10% and myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution and the People's Champ. Now, why are you wondering? Are the other two? Go for it. Tell them.
Well, I think someone's moaning about being ill or something when he hasn't got any children, so I don't think he's got any excuses.
No excuses.
And the other ones, I don't know, drinking some soy lattes or something from Starbucks. Do we know where Miss No Show is?
Miss No Show is being off the grid just in life as well. I got a message the other week asking if I was okay. I messaged back, no response. How about you?
We'll say that she's drinking Starbucks tonight. Drive through a couple of times. Yeah, I haven't spoken to Miss No Show for a bit. It'd be great to get him onto a pod one week, but I am doubting it.
Well, Mrs. No Show, as always, we'll give you a shout out for the 4 Bs. Mr. All In, aka the $1 trillion man, you'll be back someday, I'm sure.
Yeah, I won't give him too much shit because he probably has got the best attendance record out of all of us, so we can't really moan. He probably is feeling quite ropey. God knows what he's got.
You know he loves these recordings as well. This is where he gets his rants off and he builds it up for the week and then just lets.
I was gonna say it's not where he gets his rants. He does it on LinkedIn. He does it on Twitter. I haven't seen one on LinkedIn for a while because I always love to see those.
Oh, it triggers a lot of people on LinkedIn, doesn't it?
Yeah, I get messages from people I work with saying, "Have you seen what he's written on LinkedIn?"
Yeah, I hover over the like button and then scroll up and past it.
You can't like. We're in business. We can't like what he writes. On Twitter, I do because it's pretty anonymous, but not on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So we're in misinformation part 3. Yeah. So no doubt we'll have some feedback from Mr. Orlin next week when he says this wasn't true. Well, this is our disclaimer. Quite a lot of this information will be factually incorrect because we don't have our fact checker with us. But there's one piece of information which will always remain true. Buy Bitcoin.
Just buy Bitcoin. JBB.
And it's been on discount.
Absolutely. There's a sale going on, a fire sale. We'll talk about it throughout the pod, but this is just for entertainment purposes, right? But at the same time, it's not. It's
well, as we're saying, this is kind of like a hobby.
Yeah.
This is, a lot of people get some kind of financial literacy together so they can navigate their pension, navigate their investments a bit better, whereas this is turning full in one of my favorite things. It's up there with going to the gym and cycling
100%.
and what I enjoy. Yeah, I was reading a book about tax. I think it's Daylight Robbery last night, which I'm actually really enjoying. And you read through pages and pages how different taxes, poll tax was introduced in, I can't remember what the year was exactly, but hundreds of years ago in the UK, versus various different taxes around the world and basically how ridiculous it is.
Yep.
But it kind of leads into understanding how the whole financial world works and why everything goes on. And I hate to say it, but quite a lot of the time, Mr. All-In is correct. You just don't realize it at first.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes it sound like some crazy conspiracy theorists, but the truth is actually the fact that the governments that we go in and elect are just corrupt, and it's hard to swallow that bitter pill, but it's the truth. But going back to your point about this is genuinely our hobby, as I was saying offline to, I met one of my son's friends' dads at a recent party, and I educated him on the Bitcoin lessons, and which he then came back to me and said the app was absolutely awesome. So any listeners out there that haven't already downloaded Bitcoin lessons, get on it and start educating yourself about what's going on, because I feel like in the 3 days since we spoke and saw each other, I've just opened up his eyes and orange pilled him, and I will continue to orange pill him and everybody else that listens across the globe until you all become Bitcoiners and we fight the good fight, right?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see the evolution of a Bitcoiner, because it is the initial bit. You get it. You get the whole idea of Bitcoin. So the fact that it's a hedge against fiat, and basically whatever money you hold in fiat is useless after what is it, every 15 to 20 years it halves in value in its buying power. So it'd be really good to watch him, because I don't think I appreciated it when we first started on this journey of where I was, whereas I know I'm very far down the rabbit hole now. I look at it now and go, what the hell's wrong with me? Why can't I just go get back in my pod, eat the bugs, and own nothing and be happy?
Yeah.
Whereas instead, we're kind of like on this digging deeper and deeper about taxes, digging into inflation, looking at what different nations are doing, all these kind of factors where you're kind of going, I wish I hadn't gone this far down, because it's literally destroyed my outlook on life.
Yeah.
And you don't realize it. Yeah, I can't stop either. But this taxes book, which you recommended to me, it's really good read. And it's great accompaniment to one which I read about price controls and inflation a few months ago. So I think that was a book written in the 1970s, which goes back every single time when a price control has been introduced, and inflation and the kind of impact which it causes, and the fact that price controls have never worked. But it's something which Biden's hinting at the moment, whereas the tax book, it's
for anyone that's watching Daylight Robbery, How Tax Shaped Our Past and Will Change Our Future by Dominic Frisby. So
I'm about a fifth of the way through that, so I'm not heavily through, but it's interesting to understand what's happened. But I've got a number of books which I'll read next. I think one which you recommended, Bitcoin is Venice.
Yep, Bitcoin is Venice. Yep.
So that's on my list of probably ones which I'll read fairly close. But I think I've kind of gone a bit of a tangent on this today, talking about our hobby.
Well, yeah, the one that I'm going to take from you is inventing Bitcoin as well. So any any listeners that are readers out there or Audible fans, yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing as well. Should we kick off with the first story?
Oh, yeah. So this is really big news. I think
it's interesting news, definitely.
I saw it on Twitter that about Bukele meeting with 44 countries, so a mixture of country representatives, bank representatives, I think a couple of bits and pieces. So it was actually yesterday. So I read this at first, I'm going, oof, this is exciting. 44 countries, and the naysayers will be like, it'll be some shit country. It'll be, I don't know, like some little island. It's 44 countries. What are the 190 something countries?
Or 196 or so.
Yeah, if you come up with the expanded list, including principalities, it's like 200 and something.
Yeah.
So to get 44 countries, that is like around about a fifth. So it's a great value. And some of the countries: Paraguay, Angola, Ghana, Nambia, Uganda, Guinea, Madagascar, Haiti, Burundi, a place where I can't even pronounce, which was formerly Swaziland. So Eswatini, Jordan. So. Jordan really surprised me actually at the Middle East. Honduras.
Well, the State Bank of Pakistan was the one that surprised me and raised my.
Well, that's one of my favourites. I've been waiting for Pakistan.
Regular listeners
Rwanda, Kenya, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Satome, and Principe. So you've got all these various different countries, quite a lot in South America, quite a lot in Africa, and then the odd one here and there. So we've got Jordan outside. And actually, it's Africa and South America. So some people are really, really poor at the moment. Visa is such a great selection. So the naysayers will say, but these are poor countries. These are countries which are not doing very well. Well, this is the whole point. Fix the money, fix the country. So it's stopping inflation. So it's like, this is what you can spend. This is how much tax you should be getting. This is what you can run your services on. So we actually come up with a fair representation of how people can move forward. And so these people can afford to save. It's so they can afford to actually have a bank account for Bitcoin. So one of the issues is in these developing countries is that the banks won't give bank accounts because they don't have enough money, they don't have enough income. They're not profitable for these banks to utilize, so they can't sell products to them. Whereas with Bitcoin, they can have a Lightning wallet and they can just store their Bitcoin on there. So, some of these countries are some of the poorest in the world. We know that El Salvador was one of the lowest in the rankings when you looked at mixtures of things like murder, crime, and general poverty, and also the unbankables there. So I'm really excited to hear the outcome. I was having a search round today to try and find out what happened with this meeting, but nothing seems to be been released yet.
Yeah. First of all, the fact that this has all been going on in the background as well. So let's not underestimate the work that will have needed to have gone into these countries. I also think that naturally, like with any gathering, you will have had some countries that had all the best of intentions to join and be part of the party, but just didn't end up going to the party as well. And we'll also have the groundswell as well of the FOMO. The FOMO of, oh, my neighboring country went to this event. Maybe will then go on to partake and obviously join the Bitcoin standard. And what am I missing out? What do they know that I don't know? So whilst there may have only been 44, I think that the others will want to join.
But it's not just 44.
It's not just 44.
44 is a lot. I can't get over how many different countries there are. And it's not just, some random representative. So I mentioned some countries. We've got Central Bank of Sao Tome, Central Bank of Paraguay, National Bank of Angola, Bank of Ghana, Bank of Nambia, Bank of Uganda, Central Bank of Jordan. So this isn't just some random politician turning up. This is someone from the central bank of those individual countries. They're going, our currency is fucked. The US dollar is fucked. Why would we, we're going to have to move off our currency. Why would we move to the dollar? So with this, it means that, I can't wait to see what the outcome is. Like Honduras, we had the announcement during Bitcoin 2022 that Prospera, some weird futuristic autonomous city, started accepting Bitcoin or something along those lines. And we had as well in Madeira, and there's another place as well, that they started accepting Bitcoin, but it wasn't part of their currency. So I think they recognize it as a currency or something along those lines. But this is hopefully the big step. And like if we get Pakistan, I'll be overjoyed. And I think you said more countries than myself at the start. Did I say 3 or 4 and you said more?
I think there were more. Yeah.
I
think I went for 6.
Yeah, so I think I went 4.
Yeah, I think it was 0. Well, Mr. All In went 0, and then I think he didn't want to be too bullish and went for 2. And then you went for 4, and I went for 6. So, 44 would be an amazing.
If you think about your sales conversion, so if you prospect 44 companies, what's your expected conversion rate?
Well, at least minimum 10%. Minimum.
So if we get 4, that is a success. It's getting that second country onto a Bitcoin standard. That's the big one. Like once you get that, you'd hope that you'd have a bit of a role. And so we can hope that one of the neighbors like Honduras or one of the really, poor countries in Africa, or maybe even that big country, Argentina, which we discussed last week, well, the banks are starting to accept Bitcoin, but the central bank went, no, you can't do that. That's a hope.
Yeah. So at the end of the article, it said it took 12 years for the first country to adopt Bitcoin, but then around 8 months for the second. Who are they classing as the second, in their opinion?
I wonder it's the Central African Republic.
Mm.
So it was
So
a bit of
that
a weird one. It's not a
it
full
was.
adoption.
No,
I don't count that personally until it's
I
a
don't.
registered currency of that country and a full country. So I think Prospera is a registered currency in Prospera, but not the rest of Honduras.
Mm.
It doesn't count.
Yeah, same. And they are saying that, of course, if Panama's president signs the recent Bitcoin bill into law, then they'll obviously accept them as the third. But hey, let's see.
We got Mexico as well. And the IMF was round Mexico like a fly around shit. So I don't know how far they'll get. But I was saying to myself, obviously Bukele is pushing this on a nation state level. Like you got Sailor pushing this along, and you got Bukele. But I was like, it sounds like they're going to be invaded because of democracy.
Yeah. What was also interesting, again, if you're listening on an Audible format, it's really worthwhile clicking on the link to this story, because there's a picture of the world map and where the countries that attended the conference in El Salvador were based. Russia is coloured in yellow as well.
So is China.
And China. So
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
I think someone's got a bit handy with the paint.
I do as well, because I see India coloured in as well there.
India wouldn't go for this.
No,
India love debate. They love debasing their currency. It's part of their customs.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, that is New Zealand coloured in as well, right?
Very hard to tell.
Very
it looks
hard
like
to tell.
it's a part of the Philippines or something in there.
Mm.
I don't know if I believe those. I think someone's just got a bit handy with the paint and there hasn't been a clear border. So they put the the cover and paint thing, the paint can, and it's gone because there's not a border in between one of those countries and China.
Yeah. Listeners, get back to us on this one. But all in all, the article and the consensus behind it is that there has been a meeting of multiple minds to at least be interested in sending somebody high up within their governments from a central bank to go and understand why the hell El Salvador have moved to a Bitcoin standard and potentially how they can benefit from it too.
And Bukele is under serious threat of democracy at the moment.
Yeah.
People need their freedom from him. Or there's going to be a coup. Like, this does not bode well. Absolutely. Every time which someone has tried to move away from the dollar and paying for oil, so we got Iraq, Libya, there's been a backlash.
Yep.
So we need some other countries on it quick. Otherwise it's going to be a problem.
Absolutely. Right. Well, there you have it. That is story number one. So definitely, as always, just give us a shout on anything with regards to your thoughts and comments on that. Next, we're going to be talking about a story that I saw. Did you manage to take a look at this?
I listened to it, but I got really put off by his NFT shilling and his website meanders.
Thank you. Exactly. I should have put it in the show notes as well, because
I want to cut video where it's just the first 20 minutes and just like ignore all his shilling shit.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So Jordan Friedman is the guy that's being interviewed in this link and talking about the power of Bitcoin. And he is pro Bitcoin, but then at the same time, he's the CEO and chief editor of NFT.com. Okay, so we're going to move on to the second story of the evening, and this is with regards to Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett just not getting it. And what we mean by just not getting it is, yes, have been great value investing investors, but in terms of where they are today, I think they've had it, right? And Jordan Fried, who
He
is
did talk about Apple, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
But they didn't get Apple for all those years, and they certainly don't get cloud computing. But they're still investing. They're doing reasonably well. They've probably got a better return than most people.
Absolutely. But as we said, we kind of put off by who's saying all of this, but at the same time, he was very complimentary of Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger in terms of in their time and in their day, they were absolutely fine. But their principles of only invest in what you know still stands true. I don't get JPEGs, so I don't invest in NFTs. And you should not go ahead and invest into Bitcoin without potentially reading the Bitcoin standard, doing Bitcoin lessons, and just kind of listening to a podcast like this. Just get an understanding of where you're putting your money, or continue to stay having fun, staying poor.
You mentioned it about Bitcoin standards. So just in case we've got anyone who has joined this because we've got a funny image on the front of the YouTube link, then best piece of advice which you can get from this is read the Bitcoin standard. You may not want to invest in Bitcoin, but it will teach you a lot about money, especially those first 100 pages. So give it a try. If someone if by some reason we put on some really stupid image on the front, then you decide, oh, I'll click on this, and then you come up with going, what the hell are these two talking about, and why is everything completely wrong? But Jordan Fried, the guy who was doing the interview, it did seem all right until he started shilling his shitty little website which sells JPEGs. He talked about Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, and once again the question is, are they not dead yet?
That could be us in 50 years, by the way, when we're talking about.
To be fair, if that was me in 50 years, I'd be very proud of myself.
Yeah.
But still, they don't understand a lot of things like cloud computing, Apple, and Bitcoin's one of those. Charlie Munger trying to compare it to rat poison. Yeah, possibly it is rat poison because it kills the rats.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're trying to shake them out with these diamond hands that we've got right now, and we're doing a great job. But ultimately, where we're going with this is what is Bitcoin? So Bitcoin is given multiple terms and multiple names. It's a store of wealth. It's it's a hedge against inflation. It's software. It's what does Saylor refer it to? Is it's electricity? It's a transfer of electricity over time.
If you had to say it, what is Bitcoin in one sentence, a short, concise sentence, what would it be?
It's the ability to hold wealth over time.
My one sentence would be, it's a way to shackle the government.
Yeah,
it controls the government. To expand on that, I mean, it controls the government. It stops them overspending, stops pushing people into poverty. Allows people to understand what their spends are, what their expenses are, what their income is, with things not moving unless they become cheaper to produce over time or easier, or if they become more expensive or harder to produce over time. So it could be mining for some rare mineral.
I mean, it also helps a lot of the people that are unbanked as well. So, we can help bring nearly half the world's population into the first world by being able to transfer goods and make and earn a decent living as well. And this is, I guess, the reason why Bitcoin has, there's a lot of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubts around Bitcoin, because it's not just one thing, it's everything. And it's not what you already know. It's not something that you can just liken to. It's multiple things that has multiple uses. And guess what? We don't even know all of the use cases right now for Bitcoin, but yet it's still stayed the same since it was invented 13 years ago, right?
Oh, it's had the improvement. So it's had the
Yeah, the
what
improvement.
it's had. Was it the layer 2 improvement, which we call it for
Yeah,
Lightning?
yeah.
Possibly the biggest one, which moved it from being a store of value to a payments network.
Oh,
And then
absolutely.
there's various other ones,
And
which
the
are probably
economies
more
of
minor.
scale as well for Lightning.
Yeah, and there'll probably be more and more improvements over time.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett and how they don't get it. So this is so interesting about, first of all, if my granddad was still alive and I asked his opinion about just something as simple as a laptop or computing, what would it be? Be like, they're useless. You can't do anything on it. It's not a workshop, is it? Because he's from that generation. And that's what we're seeing here. I kind of look at these two and think they are absolute legends in their own right, but they don't understand about the future. They're barely understanding any of the technology stocks now. So I almost think it's a bit of a moot point.
Yeah. They've helped a generation of investors for sure. And again, some of the principles that they teach will still ring true tomorrow, next week, and the years after. But in terms of where Bitcoin is concerned, yeah, stay out of this, guys.
And kind of going on to the second point. So the second part of that link, which he sent around with Jordan Freed, he says no one buys NFTs. There are only 6,000 to 8,000 new wallets being produced. He didn't say how often, so I'm guessing it must be weekly or something. We're very early. And I was just kind of going, at first I was like, oh, he's ripping into NFTs. And then I realized he's shilling his shitty website for NFTs. So he said, everyone alive in 10 years will own NFTs. So his way of looking at it is you'll own an NFT. So you have a picture on your phone of something that you own. And I'm like, I want to take a picture of my car. I can take a picture on my phone. I don't need some shitty NFT on my phone. So I'm a bit like, I don't really understand the whole point of NFTs. Like he's trying to come up with these Bored Apes and stick dicks picture and whatever else. They aren't what NFTs are going to be. There's going to be a further purpose which goes into ownership.
Yeah.
But I don't understand the use case for it.
I get this, and I kind of thought, actually, I see it. So the ownership of authenticity. So an NFT could be the authenticity of, let's say, a high value watch, and you'll have an NFT, and there'll be something that is created that is in the physical watch, which then links to the digital image. And together you can then say, okay, based on the two, they match and you are the owner of this. So perhaps you could show this off in the metaverse or Sandbox or OpenSea, wherever you wanted to, but you will have a digital certificate of it. And that digital certificate could be the NFT. Now, I get that, but it's not something that you're not going to go out to just buy that. You'll no doubt want the physical thing, and that's cool.
It sounds like it's almost like a receipt.
Exactly that. It's a receipt.
So it sounds like everyone's overamping. They're overamping what the actual technology is.
Yeah, because to have a pixelated ape as a picture, as my profile picture, that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, isn't really my aim.
I still don't really get the use case. I understand that it's not what we're seeing at the moment, but I just look at it as an absolute waste, especially if it's just basically a receipt or 100%. A certificate of ownership.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those things that it can't be changed. but great. So we've moved from paper receipts to a digital receipt. Fantastic.
And
Is
they're
it
not worth
worth
200
this?
grand.
Yeah, exactly. Is it worth 200 grand? No, I don't think so. But again, I do certainly think that the likes of, the boomers. I mean, do we even class Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett as boomers? I think they're pre-boomers, right?
Yeah, I think my
Given their
dad's
age.
generation is boomers from like around about 45 through
45
to, was it
onwards.
60? I
Yeah,
want to say till 1960, whereas those two are about 90. So I think they're going
yeah,
to be 1930s. So I don't know what they're classed as. Probably something to do with a war.
yeah. But again, answers on a postcard, old school for that one, right?
or any answers on a postcard for what on earth is a good purpose of an NFT, which actually give it value rather than just being, the equivalent of a receipt or a certificate.
Next story, which is probably one of my favorites for this week.
There could have been a lot of inflation. Is this the inflation story? There could have been a lot of inflation stories. So there's
We're
been
the inflation bros.
Oh man, I wanted to put so many in, but Mr. Orlin's told me so many times I can only have one. So one which I want to mention. So
I love an inflation story.
There were two this week with the UK, which we're not going to talk about, but I'm just going to mention them. So the governor of the Bank of England, I think that's his title. He said that inflation's going to go crazy, push food prices up and energy, and this is only the start, but don't ask for a pay rise. He said it again this week. I think he said it about a month ago. And then one of the MPs said that people are either going to have to suffer or they're going to have to get more hours or get a second job. Those are just the highlights of what we couldn't have in this week. Whereas this is a very interesting one. So Kim.com, and like when I saw that name, I went, I know that name. I was trying to remember who the hell he was, so I had a bit of a Google. So do you remember why Kim.com is so famous?
No, I don't.
I think there's a standoff in his mansion, but ultimately he was arrested for running a website called Mega Upload. So do you remember that?
I do indeed, yeah.
So yeah, piracy basically. He was hosting loads of shows or letting people host loads of shows on his servers. So I think there's quite a standoff about it, and he has got a bit of a history. But he's come back with this epic tweet, and I have followed him now because he's not someone who I've ever considered since, when was it, 2011, when he got done for having Mega Upload and sent down. But this tweet, I went, this is some real good insights. So this is around the US debt. So I know that Sir Neverlook, one of your favorite websites, is a US debt clock.
Absolutely.
But this goes into it more. So this goes, it talks about how the US is bankrupt and the fact that there's only controlled demolition as a way out. So this goes into the Great Reset. And it kind of, I do look at this and go, I don't want it to be true. But
now,
so
I
many
didn't
things.
have the time to check the figures, however.
Oh, no, I didn't check the figures.
Yeah, I'm taking it on face value, and that's all Bitcoin
but it's got to be true.
Should do. Yeah.
So it was, the US total debt is 90 trillion. So, I mean, like, you think about like a mortgage, when you like say, I don't know, 200, 300 grand in debt, my God, how am I going to pay that back? 90 trillion. Think of all those zeros they are on debt. The US unfunded liabilities are 169 trillion. So giving you a total of 259 trillion of debts. And then all the assets, 193 trillion. So I think that's all the different companies based in the US and various other different factors and wealth. So the remaining balance is minus 66 trillion.
Now,
after every single every asset is being sold off.
Yeah. According to the US National Debt Clock, again, my favorite website, it's showing us 30 trillion. So he's gone 3 times that already. So I wonder where that 90 trillion is actually made up from. Is that the true figure that he believes that it is?
I'm just searching for a quick figure now to try and work out how much of the dollars were printed in 2021.
Oh, this is brilliant, because this is where the part 3 of the misinformation starts to really kick in, because we're talking about figures and we're going to get it wrong. And so this makes the show even greater.
So it says here that 4 trillion was printed in January 2020. So 4 trillion.
Okay, we
and
can
then
add up 4.
In October 2021, so it's only giving me 2 figures, what I'm having a search on now, 20 trillion was printed.
Okay,
20
so 20
trillion.
plus 4. Do you want to do the maths on that? 20
Oof.
plus 4.
22.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But you think with 24 trillion plus, I think there's some more in there. I don't think it's just those figures were printed. You kind of think the next time which they print in order to dig themselves out the hole, it's going to be 40 or 50 trillion.
Yeah.
It's going to ramp up again. So I always look at these debts and think it doesn't mean anything though, because they can just print off 100 trillion to make themselves out of debt. It'll make everyone poor as fuck. They won't be able to afford gas, electricity, petrol, or any chicken, and they will be eating the bugs. But this whole premise of the US government being the reserve currency, because it started off with them holding the gold, being backed by the gold, and going, fuck the gold, we're the most powerful country.
Yep.
You can't do shit, France. And so you ended up with them just printing what they like, and we've ended up in this situation where they can just go, we're printing 100 trillion because we don't want to be in debt. Yeah. So I think whilst Kim.com is a very good point, I think it means nothing because fiat is backed by nothing. And correct. I know this is one of the arguments against Bitcoin, it's backed by nothing. Well, what exactly is a dollar backed by? What is a pound backed by? Nothing. So they can print out of thin air, which is, at least with Bitcoin, there's 21 million of them. And it's backed by people actually having faith in it because they know more can't be made.
You said it. So ultimately, the figure of minus 66 trillion is what's left, right? So when you add up all of the debt versus all of the, I say profit, or the assets that the US has, we still get a minus 66 figure, right? And so what it kind of felt quite abrupt in terms of the end. So what does all of this mean?
I think it's just the fact that the whole fiat system is built on nothing.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I think it's why we need sound money. It's why we go through money cycles of gold to paper backed by gold to then fiat, which is government issued backed by nothing. And then we end up having a big crash. It's happened numerous times in history. The 2 most notable are China, before they went into, what do they call it, the years when we end up opium wars. Basically, they end up going down a fiat system after being the most powerful country in the world. It took them 300 years to get back off that. I think it's they call it like the years of despair or something like that.
Yeah,
basically because they fucked up so badly. And it's it happened in most times. It happened in Rome as well. So with Rome, it was a coin clipping, which is fundamentally the same thing, where they had a coin made out of silver and gold, and then it ended up with less and less until it was just worthless metals in the end.
I would say though, with China, and I think it's like inherent in their DNA in terms of therefore having the discipline to ensure that they, 1, take on the lessons, and 2, that kind of understand, right, we've done something pretty bad in the past, let's not do it again. And it's passed down through generation to generation so that they don't necessarily repeat it. Whereas in the West, I don't know if we'd be so wise. Yes, we'd go through the same, but I don't know if we'd be so wise to not do it again.
Well, the thing is, you say this, but China don't have a gold-backed currency, but I doubt they had any choice.
No,
So, you
but
know,
that's why they've
if
been buying gold.
yeah, it could be that, because the plan was that Libya was going to back a new currency in Africa, um, to be that country, to be that currency which is backed by precious metals. So China could be planning the same thing. You actually never know. It could
Mm.
actually be sound monetary policy, but I doubt it.
Well, according
It's
to
too hard.
yeah, according to the gold reserves list, I think on one of the pods that we were looking at, they are twice the size in terms of gold that they hold and store than their next country ultimately. So they are number one in terms of metric tons of gold. Who knows? Time will tell. But ultimately, yeah, they are going to be the new world number one superpower. It's just inevitable in terms of the way things are going, but also, it just goes along the lines of the US is bankrupt. Will they then take over the US with a hot war because no power has ever given up power without a fight?
Well,
Again, we'll
you
see.
say this, but who's the power before the US?
It was the UK.
Did the UK fight?
We didn't fight. No, we didn't.
We just
gave it
rolled
over.
over.
We
We
rolled it
rolled
over.
over and let the US take it.
We did.
But I don't think the US would be as considered as that, because I think by that time the UK were financially completely mismatched and also military completely mismatched with the US. It
Yeah,
was a David and Goliath, and David had his hands tied behind his back as well. It was a no-win situation. Whereas the
absolutely.
US is still a powerhouse.
I think we're on our knees because also at the time it was the war going on. So luckily we were on the same side in terms of fighting of the war. And I think the Americans were quite opportunistic from, as history tells us as well, in terms of, telling everybody to give them their own gold and so forth. And then
Sneaky
naturally,
bastards. If
yeah,
this was China doing this, you'd be like, fucking Chinese. But no one says the sneaky fucking Americans, because it's what they did before
yeah.
they got stupid and fat.
Well, are they being sneaky in a different way by enticing people to choose them as their new reserve currency? Of course, we've had who was it that was just we've obviously Russia. They've looked to use them, and I want to say Iran. They want to potentially look to use China as
Yeah, it was Israel, because
Israel.
it's a complete ally, but
Yes,
it was a couple
that's
percentages, because
it.
it wasn't big, but it
No,
was still notable, the fact that they decreased the US the holdings in the dollar by a couple of percent and brought in things like the Australian dollar, the Canadian dollar, and then also the Chinese. I can't even say it now.
the Chinese yuan.
Yuan. That's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. It was noticeable. It wasn't so much about the amount; it's the fact that they'd done it.
Yeah, exactly that. So we're also going to see not only the fact that the US is bankrupt, but the death of the petrodollar in our lifetimes. I think so.
It
So
it would be glorious, but if it turns out to be China, it could be a lot worse.
yeah, exactly that. But similar to the link I sent you offline again, where Ray Dalio, going back to one of our favorite books, New World Order, what is happening is not something that is happening for the very first time. What's happening is it's the first time that we are seeing in our lifetimes, or that's happening in a new cycle. So yeah, keep an eye out in terms of this, because this is all playing out as it has done before.
I was going to say, you probably only see a changeover once in a lifetime. I think you'd
Yeah,
have to be bloody old, because I think it's usually around about 100 years.
yeah, 100 years
Um,
plus.
so, like my granddad, he would have seen the switch from the UK to the US.
Yeah.
But he hasn't been here for this switch, which appears to be the US to China. But as we said, it should be China unless they do something silly. And the silliness seems to be happening right now. The lockdowns, which we're seeing, which are basically stifling their exports, but they're still very financially sound. So I don't know if it will kill them off.
Yeah. Again, I'll say this because I want to be that guy that says, I told you so. The only thing that I think that can stop China is also a natural disaster, such as an earthquake or something like that, that will then put them on the back foot.
Yeah, fair point.
Yeah.
Do we want to move on to the next one?
Let's
on to
do
lighter
it.
notes. So this is really interesting because I don't follow him on Twitter, but I saw a tweet which is gathering a lot of attention from Jeff Bezos, who was referring to one of Joe Biden's tweets, obviously not written by Joe because I doubt he knows how to use a keyboard or even spell, and calls it misinformation. It should be referred to the board of disinformation. And this is the fact that Joe Biden was calling, I think, for companies to pay their fair share of tax. So, a couple of things came out of here is I thought he was in the club. What's going on, Jeff? I know he's looking really jacked at the moment and tan. So I don't know if that's kind of altered. I don't know if that's altered his kind of mind frame into the fact that he's now quite based. But the fact he went into
Beastos.
Beastos looks like an absolute monster.
Yeah,
must be on the testosterone or something at the moment. But yeah, he because Biden's saying basically we want to tax corporations more and make sure they pay the tax. But my whole point about this is no matter how much tax you get someone to pay, you're still going to spend 10 to 20% more than what you're bringing in, as is shown by history, because there's been various different taxes and increases in taxes over the last 100 years. And all you've done is increase the spending and also do the secret tax of inflation every year was somewhere around about 5%, but we're never quite sure until the lockdown years when they did like 20% per year.
Well, he's a multi-billionaire.
Is he a trillionaire in his worth, or is he a billionaire?
Well, he's number 2 now, isn't he? With Elon being number 1, or has he gone back to being number 1 if Elon's bought Twitter and therefore his pockets are slightly lighter?
It says he's 140.6 billion.
That's what I saw.
I was wondering whether it's trillionaires yet, whereas Elon is showing us 265. So Elon is the Don.
Yeah, Don Dada.
But I kind of looked at this and went, is this kind of like, because everyone's been hiding a little bit scared from criticizing government policies. We've gone into this almost like communist socialist environment where we had a lot of overreach by the left and no one's dared criticize the government. And it's almost like people have started realizing that we need to start criticizing them because they're out of control. And I'm kind of going, is it part of that, or is there something which we're not seeing, which we're not understanding? I think Mr. Orlin was quite cynical about it in comparing Trudeau, except when Trudeau started.
Cynical?
Actually, with Trudeau, he came in, oh, he's so nice, he wants to look after everyone. Oh no, 10, 15 years later, what's he done? He's threatened to kill everyone's dog who went to a protest. And he froze their bank accounts and he ignored them and tried to use force on them. So, that's what we saw. And I think that's a worry. We've seen these examples, whereas I think Bezos is just saying, I'm a capitalist and this is just a pile of nonsense. So, I think what we always come back to is the government doesn't have an income issue. The amount of taxes which they rake in, they have a spending problem. It's like someone with that mega high salary, they're earning like 300 grand, but they're spending 330 grand every year. They're spending that 10% over what they actually earn. So their problem isn't the income, it's what they're spending on. They've got a very poor control of their finances, and that's what most nation states have.
I also want to go back to what you were saying about people criticizing the government. I think a lot of the time they are benefiting from the government in some shape or form as well. So we know that Elon gets a lot of money in terms of grants for both SpaceX and Tesla as well. So they're naturally not going to try and bite the hand that feeds them in that respect. Jeff, as we said, I thought he was in the club, and I thought him reaching the status of where he has gotten to is because of the fact that, you know, he has people alongside government. Obviously, he has the, I think it's the Washington Post, I want to say, in terms of from
and it's very left leaning as well, the Washington
yeah,
Post, unless I'm mistaken.
yeah, absolutely. So there is something that's behind it, but maybe this is the new billionaire thing. You know, before it was rockets, now it's, you know, kind of undermining and criticizing the government. And long may it continue.
So on the back of this one,
Yeah.
so the original tweet, we haven't actually said this. Bear with me. I'm just getting up the tweet so I can actually repeat it word for word, because it started off with a Biden one, which is a pile of nonsense propaganda. So you want to bring down inflation. Let's make sure the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share. The reply from Jeff Bezos with 168,000 likes was, the newly created disinformation board should review this tweet, or maybe they need to form a new non-sequitur board instead. Raising corp taxes is fine to discuss. Taming inflation is critical to discuss. Mushing them together is just misdirection. You know, because the fact is that you want someone to pay their tax, that's fine, but you're actually inflating people into poverty. And, you know, you're not going to bring down inflation. And that's what Jeff Bezos is saying. That steak, which is now costing you, I don't know, £5, it's cost you £5. It's no longer £4, because they have debased the value of money. As simple as it goes. So Jeff is exactly on. But then we had a response from the government, well, from the White House anyway. And it's obviously too articulate to be Joe Biden. So it doesn't require a huge leap of faith, a huge leap to figure out why one of the wealthiest individuals on earth opposes an economic agenda for middle class that cuts some of the biggest costs families face. He was just saying his wasn't so much anything to do with that. It was, stop inflating, you're making people poor. And corporation tax, they are two different points. Control your spending and stop inflating the money. So they're saying fights inflation for the long haul. How corporation tax, they would just take that and they'd inflate the same amount. So it's a pile of rubbish, and adds to the historic deficit reduction the president is achieving. I thought they got more into debt since Biden's been in power, by asking the richest taxpayers and corporations to pay their fair share. You know, my opinion is, you know, the more which you ask someone to pay, the more you're going to take. It's a never-ending handout. It's like the government's never going to get themselves into control. But Jeff Bezos came back and said, "Look, a squirrel." And this is the White House's statement about my recent tweets. They understandably want to muddy the topic. They know inflation hurts the neediest the most. And this is our point. Wages do not go up in line with inflation. So that steak is now out of reach for various people who can't afford it, who, you know, have limited incomes. They know inflation hurts the neediest most, but unions aren't causing inflation, neither are wealthy people. Remember, the administration tried. Spot on. Everything which you said is correct. I mean, if you're going to tax people more, you're going to discourage them to either declare or even try. So you're either going to end up with people avoiding tax legally, or you're going to end up with people just going, fuck this, it's not worth my while to try because the government are taking too big a share off me. And this is a problem with raising taxes again and again, whereas they should be looking at, well, where are we taking money away from people? And it could be, you know, trips out to golfing like Biden likes to do. It could be his holidays away, because I think he has one about every 2 months. You know, that could save some money. from the taxes and stop a little bit of inflation, or it could be various different policies which are being put in place. It's a bit infuriating because they're still continuing on this silly little lie that inflation isn't down to us. It isn't down to us printing money. It isn't the increases of 20% aren't down to us printing 20% of the dollars over last year. It's fucking inflation. And it got in! The inflation dragon is back. It wasn't me with this can full of gas and this handful of matches. It was the dragon.
It is back. And you know what? What's really interesting is that Michael Saylor has weighed in at Jeff Bezos as well, saying that you can't stop inflation, but you can offer 1 billion of the neediest people in the world a financial solution based Bitcoin, a sound, ethical, technical, economic foundation for global economic empowerment that is open, fair, truthful, scalable, and importantly, governments incorruptible. So there is an answer to all of this. So yes, we are back on our inflation bubble, and yes, it's interesting that Jeff Bezos is weighing in on this as well. So hey, you know,
I think he just took exception, didn't he?
Yeah. Interesting that he wants to talk about it. There's got to be an angle there. There is somewhere an angle, and again, in time,
I think he's just made his money. It doesn't matter to him, but the fact that the government keep on lying to this, I think it's just hit a nerve. That the government are taking everyone for a bunch of idiots. Because I sent around something from the 70s, so someone I follow on Twitter, he's a professor in economics in the UK. I think his name's John Ahern or something like that, or John Hearn. And he found this leaflet of inflation in the 70s. It's basically saying it's not our fault. It was 30%. It's not our fault. But don't ask for a pay rise because it'll make things worse. But the interesting about Michael Saylor and also Pomp, who weighed in, was like, will Amazon start accepting Bitcoin? And it is a solution. You just said it. It stops the government being corrupt. So they go, oh, we can't print any more money. So we can't make this magical 20%. We can't have 4-year-long wars because we can't afford it. We can't go into that debt because our debt versus revenue ratio will be completely out. We can't print our way out of this. So it makes the governments incorruptible and accountable, which is why people want Bitcoin so much.
Absolutely. And I do think that eventually, I say eventually, but not too far in the near distant future, we will see the likes of Bitcoin and the Lightning Network integrated into Amazon as well. So people, if they wanted to, albeit very stupidly, could spend their money or Bitcoin within Amazon as well.
I don't think it's stupidly when it's the currency of the world. It's inevitable.
Yeah, but for now, I feel like people should be holding and stacking. Okay, so on to the next story. We've got Saifedean Ammous.
Everyone's favorite economist.
Yes. I think ever since he's released the second book, the Fiat Standard, Saif has been a lot more toxic. With the Bitcoin Standard, he was kind of like, just.
I don't know about that.
I think the money and the not the money. I wouldn't say the money. Sorry, I would think that the high regard of where people place the Bitcoin Standard is elevated him internally to make him think, I don't give a fuck about anyone. I don't care. I'll say what I want to say.
See, I just think he's being toxic as fuck all the time.
Yeah,
I think you're just only being exposed to him lately. He's hilarious because he just some of his insults are just legendary. But this one is he starts talking about Ethereum, and I think 2 clips which Mr. Orlin picked, or other quotes which he picked from one of his interviews was Ethereum is a mother arsehole from where the shitcoins spring. I don't think it's too far wrong though. I think he's actually bob on. Yeah, it's true. And then because you think about what is the advantage of Ethereum? So what are we trying to stop by moving from fiat to Bitcoin? So we're trying to stop printing. So we don't want any more coins to be minted. Okay. We want security. And then we also want to also make sure that the control of the network is decentralized. So we do that through proof of work. So the proof of work is the random lottery, which picks out one of the miners, which then checks whether that transaction is correct to what they've seen. Whereas the proof of stake is the more money which you have, the more say you have, so you can actually change the network. So the whole thing about proof of stake, who's going to have the biggest stake? The government is. So the government can change the network so they can print more coins. So it is pretty much the start of the shit coins, Ethereum. Every single one after it has come out as a shit coin. And then the second point is proof of stake is like building a plane cheaper and fast by not making them fly, which is actually a point. Proof of stake. I've got my big stake. Here's your stake. It's my rules. So the government gets their hands on all the coins or half the coins. They go, it's my rules now. Fuck you. Well, we're going to do 20% inflation every year. So what's the point? Literally, you created digital fiat, and then on top of it, you fuck the network by making the gas fees so extortionately high by making it into a giant JPEG or Flickr library. It is an absolute arsehole of a coin. But I thought it was quite funny because I think I caught it probably around that time which Mr. Orlin saw it, but he put it into the notes.
Yeah. Well, Safe is our guy, right? And I do love when he says things like this because there's so much truth in it. Ultimately, Ethereum was the second cryptocurrency after Bitcoin.
Wasn't XRP before?
I always thought it was Ethereum and then XRP. Again, this is the misinformation part 3. So it could have been Stickdicks or
The XRP is 2012. It's not really. It's just a database which Sean plays with, so it's not really even a proper one. Whereas Ethereum's 2015.
Yeah,
but yeah, they can't even get the network to run properly. It costs you so much to send any coins. It's just gone a bit ridiculous. So
I think ultimately from Ethereum being created, it then gave everybody else a view of, oh, well, we can build on the Ethereum network and then follow from there. And then we can create these other coins, which are the shit coins, and essentially the birth of what has become the mother of all shit coins of around about 10,000, all of which will fail for one reason or another. Obviously, I'd say 10, more than 10%, maybe say 50% are all scams. Some of them I'm sure were there with an intention to serve some sort of purpose.
I think they're useless. So the ones which serve the intention, they're just technology, like smart contracts. Yeah. It doesn't need to be a coin. It's just a tech. Come up with a cool tech which people use, which they can use as a layer on top of Bitcoin or fiat. I'm just like, why does it need to be a coin or a token? It doesn't.
Do you think, therefore, there's a misinformation on their part with the use of the word coin, as opposed to what you said there?
I think people are just trying to. They're coming with. I think they're coming up with really good purposes for what you could do in terms of technology. We want to attach a monetary value to it so that they can make money, so they can make their millions. I literally think that's it. Because I look at some of them, I'm going, that's great, but it's not money, is it?
No.
Like you think about what is your money? It's your dollar at the moment, with everything else is a layer up. So like sterling, the bar, euro, they're layer up. And then you got your technology between the banks, so you kind of got all those different layers. I think it's probably I've probably stolen that from Layered Money, but never mind. I'll claim it as my own. Whereas you think about Bitcoin's the central bit. I mean, you've got your Lightning Network. You could even have your smart contracts around it. It's not money. It's technology which works with the money. So you use that smart contract in order to make sure that someone's getting a service and the other person's getting paid.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need a value. So I kind of think these shit coins are experiments with which people are using to make themselves get rich, and they probably aren't even complete as well.
It is from Layered Money, and I believe it's like the finance triangle of M1 Money as well.
But, another great book. We're talking about many books in this misinformation pod, but really good book to read or listen to.
And once again, thank you to Nick Battier for giving me a shout out on LinkedIn the other week. So thanks. I shouted him out and said this podcast with Marco Zlatan was great, and he reposted that. So thanks, Nick. Nice. I'm sure we'll meet one day.
Cool. So while we're on this subject,
do
you still own Ethereum?
I do still own it, even though it's down whatever. I am going to get rid of it. Don't worry. It's not. I'm holding it on for any form of sentimental value or anything like that. It is that, as Safe has just said, the mother arsehole, right, of shit coins. But no, I haven't sold it.
What I mean, like going through the logic of this, like when I got into Bitcoin, I went, "Why the hell have I got this?" It wasn't so much. I had one itis about Bitcoin. I just went, when I started reading about Ethereum, I went, I don't see the point in this. I bought it as a pure speculation. I made money on it, but not a lot. Literally, if I kept it for 2 months longer, I would have made, some like 5 to 10x gains, whereas I made 2 minus the gas fees. But once I kind of realized what it's about, and I understood sound money through Bitcoin, I sold it, so I had no reasoning. And it's kind of going into the Warren Buffett approach: invest in what you understand and what you actually have faith in. So, I mean, what's your kind of like logic of keeping it?
The logic is purely a price play, in all honesty. I believe the fact that Bitcoin will certainly see, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say Bitcoin is going to see a 10x within the next 5 years. Because we've got the next halving coming up in around about March 2024, and naturally when Bitcoin increases, Ethereum will increase. That, I think, is a good time to then dump. I also think that anybody that is just getting into the space right now, stack, because once that third halving comes, or will it be the fourth? It'll be the fourth halving. Then I don't believe that you're going to have any chance for the natural pleb, for the normal natural pleb to get anywhere near to becoming a whole coiner. So yeah, that's my basis of it, just purely price.
Now's your time to try and get a whole coin.
Yeah, 100%. If you
before it booms.
Yeah,
we can't all be $1 trillion men.
Unfortunately not.
So kind of we've got a bit of a double shitcoin corner this week. So a continuation about Luna. So I think this one was quite a short story, or Mr. All-In intended for it to be something which he could dig into more depth. But I had a read of this and I kind of went, oh, fucking Luna again. I'm fed up with it being all over my fucking Twitter feed. Why won't it just fuck off? But yeah, we'll talk about it briefly. So as part of the, I suppose, stability or sell-off around Luna, Luna sold 80,000 Bitcoin. So this appears to explain why Bitcoin saw that dip, that sudden sharp dip at the time. So we've seen a dip because Bitcoin is too attached to the stock markets. People see it as a kind of asset or investment rather than actual future money type. But short and sharp, Luna died, Bitcoin lives on, and we'll get stronger again, and we're going to see that 10x in the next 5 years.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. And but I think things like what have happened with Terra Luna over the last week is good for the space, because I don't know what the market cap was for Terra Luna before it went into its death spiral and will no longer ever be seen again. But if you were holding Terra Luna, because it was seen as one of those coins that was a stable coin, there are worse shit coins that are out there than what was Terra Luna, right? They had no notoriety, no public figures saying that this is going to be or is a good coin or a stable coin that you should be investing into. But hopefully it will kind of make people wise up.
So Luna at its peak,
yeah.
So let's do all time, was 116.11. Whereas now we are hitting lows of 0.00001766.
Yeah.
So I've read somewhere that it's kind of like whole worth was like billions, whereas now, it's massively shrunk. I think down to millions. It is dead.
Yeah,
it's come away of things like Dink Doink, where it's just like dead on its feet. But I look at it and go, I still don't understand the use case of stable coins. I think Mr. Allin did try and talk to him about converting between Bitcoin and dollars, and it actually had a purpose. But I just look at it and go, I still don't get it. Like, Bitcoin's a currency of the future. Luna just seems like, I don't know, a service station or something.
But also, if I'm not mistaken, the owners had we're putting Bitcoin on the other side, right? So they were going to be feeding Bitcoin into it. Or is that another coin? Again, this is the misinformation. Yeah,
so that's part of their sell-off.
That was it.
One which I'd like to refer to, which might be worth including in the show notes, is a YouTuber called CoffeeZilla, who we've mentioned numerous times before, did a video around Luna, and he dug in it from another angle. So rather than it just people losing faith and we kind of seeing the devaluation, it was the fact that the owner was being a dick and basically challenging other billionaires or millionaires that Luna would never fail, and someone shorted it and basically killed it.
Right.
Like, I kind of like half listened to it. So, but it's worth having a listen to about why Luna failed. But it just revolved around the owner being a dickhead.
Well, if that's the case, then unfortunately, him being a dickhead has lost a lot of people, a lot of money, and got them wrecked. So there you have it. Next and finally,
talk about some dickheads. It's some actor, like, I think he was in Gotham and some other TV shows, OC, and I think he seems to have a fairly good career in acting. He's done some notable TV shows, and I think he's been one of the stars in most of these shows.
Yeah.
My initial thought after reading this, so he lost his money. He said that he did get into crypto, and now he's suddenly really anti-crypto. And he did talk about Bitcoin, but I'm kind of going, he's been hurt. Who hurt you? Who hurt you, Ben McKenzie? Do we need to make it better, Ben McKenzie?
Yeah. So I used to watch Gotham, and he played Chief Commissioner Gordon in Gotham when a young Bruce Wayne was in it, and ultimately he played that authoritarian figure. So naturally, I think that actors align to their own individual personalities as well. So you'll see certain actors, they'll play the bad guy naturally, but he comes across as that, that good guy, the one you want to root for. And I do remember him from back in the day of being in the OC as well. So he's saying that he's lost a lot of money in terms of being subjected to obviously people are subjected to multi-million-dollar ads and campaigns. So I
He, he,
think
ne-
it's
he never admits to losing money, but I look at this
no,
and go, "You've lost money. What have you gone into,
yeah,
Dick Doink? Have you gone into Stick Dicks? Have you
yeah,
bought Have you bought a whale, one of those shitty dolphins which that 8-year-old made?"
yeah.
He
uh,
made a couple. He made the statements. It's not your fault, like you were saying, Ben. But I've just kind of like I've read the article. I've read a few more things which he's written, and I think the article it says he has a degree in economics, and it's just like great. Loads of people have got degrees. What makes him
mm,
qualified to understand cryptocurrency in general, currency in general? And it's
mm.
like, oh, great, you've got a degree in economics. Who did you study? Keynes, you know, the shithouse who basically, well, everything's based around his flawed theories, which, well, didn't work. And he writes about tech and national security for the New Republic, which sounds very lefty. And
Yeah.
it makes out he hasn't lost money, but he bloody has. But I'm kind of like, either one, you've lost money, or B, this is a love letter to Biden because you want to shag him.
Well, he's saying that he's finally found a crypto project worth shilling my book about two things: money and lying, and it's the latter that fascinates me. Maybe that's why I do it for a living. And ultimately, I think that you have to have some experience to then go and write a book about it. I don't think he's just going to write a book about people that have lost money and try and portray it from their side of things. I'm sure as an actor, he's been seen as an easy target, whether directly or indirectly, it's happened to him, right? Unfortunately, the story was put in by Mr. Orlin, aka the $1 trillion man. So maybe he could expand on this when he's back from his sickbed, or probably watching OnlyFans with a box of Kleenex to the side of him. But hey, we'll see. We'll see.
And doing shit posts on LinkedIn.
Yeah, standard.
Yeah, when I read some of the articles, it did seem to kind of like semi bring Bitcoin in. Whereas if you're talking about scams, you're talking about rug pulls. So, I'm trying to think of some of the different cryptos which we've seen. So we've seen Luna as the most recent one. We've seen Dink Doink. We've seen various NFT projects. So I'm kind of quite curious because he's writing from this really, really serious viewpoint. But I'm like, wouldn't it be great if he'd actually invest in Dink Doink or Stick Dicks? And it's just like he's trying to come from this really serious angle. It's just like, you're a dickhead.
Yeah, you're a dickhead. I've never seen you in the space before. You're just trying to hop on the bandwagon, and yeah, guess what? None of us are buying it, right?
I don't care. It's just like play silly games, win silly prizes.
Exactly. Well, there we have it in terms of stories, but me and you are running the show right now. So is there anything else you want to cover?
Oh, what disinformation can I say? By Dick
Yeah,
Doink, by Stick Dicks. What else is really? Oh yeah, Crypto Zoo. Those are pretty cool as well.
yeah. Well, we've been having this on-off debate as well, which I think we should talk about, is whether or not you should buy Coinbase as a stock, right? I'm saying no, not right now. I think it's had a high of $300 plus, and now it's at, last time we looked at around about $68. So, a fifth of the price of when it hit its ATH. So, why do you believe that you should potentially buy the stock of Coinbase?
I think it's zooming out and looking at what the capabilities are. So if you think about every halving, Bitcoin comes back. It's suddenly back from the dead, isn't it? And we see
Yeah.
a surge in popularity. So we had the first kind of like retail FOMO in, was it 2017, 18? When people went mad for things which they didn't understand, me and you included. And I think I sent you a stats that the kind of users in there were a couple of million.
Yeah.
Whereas the most recent one in 2021 to 22, where the figures went through the roof. So that's why I'm kind of like really tempted, because you think zoom out another 2 years time, what those figures going to be look like. And then also you think about the banks of the future, is it going to, well, it's semi going to be Coinbase. You're going to have two kind of like different ones here, because I think they do have deals with miners. So they are going to mint the coins and bring them in. So they're going to be almost like the Fed, as in they're bringing the printed coins. And if you listen to this and getting really confused, there's a maximum of 21 million coins. It's just the fact that they the miners mine coins while they're securing the network as a kind of prize for doing their work.
Yeah.
So don't worry, there's not going to be more than 21 million. But yeah, they'll deal with the minted coins, and people can, I suppose, buy it. But I suppose once we go on to Bitcoin standard, my question is, it just goes into circulation then, doesn't it? But then again, Coinbase goes out, Coinbase disappears.
Yeah.
I'll just answer my own question, because no one's buying from Coinbase, because you don't need to, because there's things in circulation you have to work for and own for. You've got no fiat to change. And it would be like an eBay where you buy things off eBay for Bitcoin, or Sats rather. So I think it's probably a shorter term play then. I've just talked myself out of any long term, and thought that in the next 2 years' time, once the crypto winter's ended, we're going to see a surge. And that's why I'm tempted.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be afraid to do it as a money grab. It's not a bad thing to do it as a money grab. By the way, I completely agree with you in the fact that I believe that Coinbase is a sound, solid business, and the price right now will increase. But unfortunately, at this moment in time, it's so intrinsically linked to Bitcoin that it is going to suffer when Bitcoin suffers. But come the halving, when it increases, it's going to increase. So the next 2 years, 100% it's going to increase. So I would see it as a 2 to 3 year stock, as opposed to how you and I normally look at stocks, which is hold for the long term.
Yeah, I think I always have a 5-year plan of what I reckon will still be relevant within 5 years.
Yeah.
I think if you're going for short terms, you're kind of looking at that pump where you're hoping to make money quick, which is when you usually lose your money.
Correct.
So, whilst I don't like the company, Facebook is a classic example of Meta and kind of moving to the metaverse. I kind of go, I can see this getting big. I don't like it. I won't use it, but I know people will. And then Microsoft, we're too dependent on Microsoft. Tesla I really like, but they are a bit overvalued, but electric cars again. So you're looking at all these things which you believe in 5 years' time will become stronger and stronger. And Coinbase, I think, within 5 years, maybe 2. I suppose you'd sell them before the crypto winter when it's at its boom. We know it when it's on its boom, when we end up with silly, stupid projects like NFTs again and Dink Doink and all kinds of shit like that. We know that's a peak, don't we?
Yeah, for me, I know that and feel, I feel like Coinbase has so far to go in terms of new users. So, we're seeing the decline of Netflix, for example, because of they may have reached the peak, and obviously current economic climate of people not having that much disposable cash. But there are so many, and we talked about it off air, didn't we, just before, in terms of person I met at my son's party, just downloaded Coinbase. There's so many more noobs that are gonna be joining.
Yeah, I was just digging out the statistics. So revenue, here we go. 2016, 16 million for Coinbase. 2017, 927 million.
Wow.
That is unbelievable. Then 2018, so we start going to crypto winter, 520 million. 2019, 483 million. So we're going on a downwards trajectory. Then 2020, 1.14 billion. And then you go. The first half of 2021, 4.03 billion. So we know that that's taking a nosedive, because I've seen I've seen other statistics on other websites around Coinbase, but I think if you can try and buy them around about now or towards the bottom, then give it 2 years. And I think when we hit, it's 2024 for the halving, isn't it?
Yeah.
When we hit the halving and the hype comes up again and everyone gets a bit excited and we get the FOMO, that's when we should see them boom again. And, maybe they'll beat that 4 billion this time.
But, we're in a privileged position where we actually understand that it's going to happen, and it's pretty inevitable. It's not a maybe. We're talking about a limited supply of a scarce commodity, essentially, and so people will want to have it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But it's always a risk. Is there going to be a different way to interact with in 2 years?
Yeah.
But then there's this other part of my head which is going, are we going to sit within the winter for the next 2 years? I'm not entirely convinced. And the reason why I say this is because Argentina, Pakistan, Honduras, Ghana, all these various different central banks, they're in El Salvador talking about Bitcoin at the moment, 44 separate countries. And then the stories about Argentina, about their 2 biggest commercial banks taking on Bitcoin, while accepting it, investing in it, and then being told by their central bank not to. It may not be 2 years, and things may go a little bit crazy again, because if a few countries take on Bitcoin, it could be a domino effect then.
But also, in this period, in this short period of time, I don't see another kind of like gold standard on-ramp exchange that is well known to customers to then be able to help them convert from fiat to cryptocurrencies like a Coinbase. So, if I speak to somebody, my first kind of avenue is like, download Bitcoin lessons and get yourself a wallet or an account, with Coinbase.
So
simple.
It's got a chart on this investor page around Coinbase. Number 1 is Binance, but I think that's more centered around China, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then Cash App, which I think is America, and then Coinbase is third. Then after Coinbase, there's a bit of a gap, and you got eToro, FTX with their shithouse CEO, Robinhood, Kraken, but I think you can't take crypto out of Robinhood. So anyone listening, don't use Robinhood, because you don't want your Bitcoin locked in. And then there's Kraken, and then we know Gemini is another big one.
So it's interesting you mentioned Robinhood and FTX in the same sentence, because the CEO of FTX has just bought I think it was a 7.6% share in Robinhood, which has therefore made Robinhood shares soar in price. So you're absolutely right. To my knowledge, you cannot take and own your cryptocurrencies, because there are multiple cryptocurrencies within Robinhood, and take ownership of it. But maybe Sam Bankman-Fried is going to change that. So watch the space on that.
What, the FTX CEO?
Correct. The
verbal diarrhea has been coming out of his mouth over the last 2 weeks. I just don't know. Like the things which he's been saying, basically the fact that he talked around the fact that, I think we covered it last week, but all cryptos are Ponzi schemes because it's basically pumping him the money. And I think this week he talked that Bitcoin isn't going to be a currency for exchange. And he totally
SPF.
forgot about Lightning.
Your whole business is based on this, so I don't know why you would say something like that.
Yeah, I have to dig out what he's been saying, but I think I've seen it all over Twitter. So he's not my favorite person at the moment. Let's put it.
Hey, maybe mildly. bring it to next week's podcast, right?
Yeah. So, have we got anything else to say? We talked about Coinbase and general investments for a bit where not maybe people will listen.
No, not from my perspective. No.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. All-In must have gone through a lot of tissues for being so ill.
Naturally, we can just slag him off for the next 5 minutes if you want, and he can have the pleasure of uploading as always.
Well, he'll have a listen.
Yeah.
I don't think I've got anything of worth there, but he'll probably tell me I've got nothing of worth to say either.
I love it. All right, well, we will bring the show to a close. This has been episode number 55 of the 4Bs. I am Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution. He is Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ. Unfortunately, today we've not been joined by Mr. All-In, aka the $1 Trillion Man. And as always, we've never been joined ever since episode 3 by Mrs. No Show, aka still Mrs. No Show. So there we have it. There we have it. All right. Well, until next week, peace out.